one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Nick will have the first application, so we'll ask him to explain why we're meeting the way we're meeting, please.
Sure thing. So in response to COVID-19 and pursuant to Minnesota Statute, Chapter 12, relating to emergency management, Governor Walz has declared a state of emergency. In response to the state of emergency and in accordance with Minnesota Statute, Chapter 13D.021, Planning Commission members and the applicants may participate by telephone or other electronic means. The meeting is being broadcast live online as well.
Okay. Thanks, Nick. And then we'll do a roll call. So if you're with us when I call your name, please say aye. Jason Wienerman.
Aye.
Sean Blackburn.
Aye.
Jason Crone.
Aye.
Ken Mossman.
Aye.
Mike Perrell.
Aye.
Rich Blinkish.
Aye.
Commissioner Persky.
Here.
Got it. Okay. First agenda item is the major shoreline alteration application submitted by Stanley Plattner, Golden Valley. Nick, you want to give us the introduction?
Yep, sure thing, Mr. Chair, Planning Commission. This is a major shoreline alteration request that includes the construction of boulder retaining wall, raised paver patio area, and placement of fill in a mapped floodway area. The parcel is about 1.4 acres. The parcel has a slope to the water body that's considered a bluff. The numbers are there with the slope and the rise that just meets the bluff threshold. The soils on the site are a loamy sand that are highly erodible. The majority of the slope is vegetated. A few trees have been removed by the property owner near the water body. There's no septic system on the property. Bullfing Lake is listed as an impaired water body for elevated nutrient levels. Staff have been on site to meet with the applicant numerous times, both environmental services staff as well as Greg Berg with Soil and Water Conservation District. The project includes, proposes adding rock riprap along 56 feet of shoreline in a mapped floodway area as indicated on the map. Active erosion is not an issue along the shoreline. This is also mentioned in the SWCD comments that were submitted. Fill placement in a mapped floodway requires an approved conditional use permit as per the ordinance. And we did get comments from the Minnesota DNR about this project about how riprap would not be allowed below the ordinary high water level without some kind of demonstrated need to prevent erosion. And a no-rise certification is normally required, but it can be waived if the material is balanced below the 1% annual flood elevation in that 100-year area. Retaining walls, there's a 31-foot long and 4-foot high boulder wall that's located as close as 7 feet from the ordinary high water level, also in the mapped floodway area. And then two 18-foot walls are proposed to fade back into the slope. The walls in the patio area are located in the lower portion of the bluff impact zone of the slope, as well as on the edge of that mapped floodway area. And then a 285 square foot patio is proposed between the walls, and it's also in the bluff impact zone. There are a couple recommended conditions if the project were to be approved, including native vegetation to stabilize disturbed areas to prevent erosion since it is on the bluff. The planting plan would have to be approved by environmental services, and any rock fill placement would have to be balanced in order to meet any kind of DNR requirements for the balanced above and below the ordinary high water, or above and below the flood plain, the floodway area. Otherwise, it would require a no-rise certification from an engineer. And that's all I have for that portion of the staff report. We do have the comments from DNR and Soil and Water as well. We didn't receive any testimony on this item. And then I could ask if members were able to visit the site.
Right, we'll do that now. I think most of us visited the site at the last meeting, so I guess it doesn't matter if you visited it for this meeting, excuse me, or for the last meeting, but if you did visit the site either last month or this month, just say yes when I call your name. Jason Wienerman,
Yes.
Sean Blackburn,
Yes.
Jason Crone,
Yes.
Ken Mossman,
Yes.
Mike Perrell,
Yes.
Rich Blankish,
Yes.
Commissioner Persky. Commissioner Persky. I think you did visit the site as I did last month. So we do have Mr. Plattner in the other room. So Jennifer, I think, is going to help him get on with us. So Mr. Plattner, identify your name and address for the record, and then add anything you might want to add. Mr. Plattner.
Yeah, my name is Stanley Plattner, 509 Denham Avenue North, Golden Valley, Minnesota. I do. And I'm muted again.
And then is there anything you want to add?
Is there
That's my
anything you want
address
to?
there. A property that's up here that I'm working on. I want to move there hopefully someday because it's under my mother's estate, and I do want to come up here. I mean, I don't have the whole house myself. It's divided. I mean, it's partial. My sister and me, it's half and half. I can't really have a whole house myself.
So if you'd like to let the planning commission know why you're requesting this permit?
Oh,
Or
well, yeah, to do the rip rock on it, and this person, landscaper person here, he put that in there, and which I wanted the rock, that's fine, but then the boulder rock wall is not what I wanted in here. That rock, and those two trees I didn't want removed. Okay, and there's a boulder wall up there, and the picture up there.
Okay.
Oh, that I didn't want that up there. I mean, that it was approved, I suppose. I can do it later. I don't know if that's approval or not, really. I mean, that goes to the water.
Is who was the landscaper, Nick? I can't see that identified here.
Yep, so this,
Supreme Landscaping.
that is correct. Brian at Supreme Lawn Landscape.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Anything else you want to add, Mr. Plattner?
Well, that vegetation, go back to the vegetation. That's the high water there, yeah. Go back to the vegetation thing. Farther back. Keep one. See, that vegetation was never there before, as long as I've had it. Since those trees are gone now, that's all the vegetation that came up. More light, and mostly that was all dark in there, okay? Now it's growing, of course, now. And a lot of the weeds are up back there up on weeds and stuff.
Okay.
And muck cuts there too, and glass and other things in there. And there is also a piece of 4x8 sheet of plywood that's down in the water too, which I won't be able to take out myself. That's sitting down there, so in the water.
Okay.
And then holding, so with debris and stuff. So.
We'll. I got a couple of questions for Nick, Mr. Plattner, and then we'll see if Planning Commission members have questions of Nick as well. So just take a pause here.
I'm going to mute it first or what?
Yep, go
Oh, go ahead. I know.
Okay. The Nick, it says a few trees were removed by the property owner. Do we know how many trees were removed?
Mr. Chair, there were just a handful, a couple of them. They were noticed when I was on site with Greg Berg. There were a couple oak trees that were cut, not more than 3 or 4
Okay.
from what I saw.
Okay. And then it says the threshold being considered a bluff. I guess, I know you touched on that a little bit, but I guess there's a couple of references to that it may be or may not be a bluff.
It
We have
is,
that.
yeah, Mr. Chair, Planning Commission, it is considered a bluff. It just is, it's right at the threshold, the cutoff for that percentage and the height. So, well, it has the height, but the percentage slope, at 30% over the 100 feet. So it does meet that threshold, so it is considered a bluff, but it is right on the edge.
Okay. And then there's no sewage treatment facility on the property at this point.
That is correct.
Okay. Planning Commission members, do you have any questions of Nick from a staff standpoint at this point?
Commissioner Persky here, Nick. How many trees were actually removed from the shoreline? Did you count those?
Yeah, it was only a handful, like 3 or 4 trees that were out there that were cut,
Okay.
from what I saw.
Right, and I just got on, I had to switch computers here. Did the applicant have a permit to cut those trees?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, no, there was no vegetation alteration
Okay,
application for that.
thank you.
Other members have questions of Nick?
Mr. Chair, Nick, Jason Crone. I know there was multiple meetings out at the job site over the course of a couple of years, and just from a context standpoint, what were the discussions and feedback given during those meetings?
Sure, Mr. Chair, Member Crone, the discussions were very much around the lack of erosion on site. About, without erosion happening, it's justifying rock riprap placement was, it wasn't necessary. It would be purely for aesthetics at that point. And then also we talked about the floodway. The floodway, it's mapped floodway area, and when it's not addressing erosion, it's considered fill, and the fill would require a major permit, and there would need to be some kind of need for that. And that was explained to the applicant on a number of those site visits and phone calls, and the applicant decided to still pursue the application, but it was made pretty clear that with the floodway and the lack of erosion, it's difficult to justify placing riprap over vegetation that's doing rather well.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
And I count, Nick, 7 site visits that were conducted over a period of time. So to follow up Jason's point, there certainly was discussion on the standards, the ordinances, kind of what we require. So any other questions, members?
Nick, this is Jason Wienerman. Just a question from the DNR comments. What do they mean by if they were to balance the filling below the 1%? What do we mean by balance the filling?
Sure, Mr. Chair, Member Wienerman. The balanced fill would be anything that you would place below the floodway area would have to be taken from, so the amount that you put below and the amount that you put above would have to be equal and net zero. So, if material were taken out and put in, it would have to equal 0. So
Okay.
you couldn't just add material below and not take out above.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Hearing no questions, we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone online? There's no one else in the other room other than Mr. Plattner. Is there anyone online with us that would like to share comments on the proposal? No one's in the other room. No one else is on the line. Then the motion to close the public hearing would be in order.
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman, so moved.
Okay. Motion's been made by Wienerman.
Second,
Close the public hearing.
Mr. Crone?
Second by Mr. Crone. Any discussion? If not, when I call the
Mr.
roll.
Chair?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Plattner does have something else he wanted to add, if he could do that at some point.
Sure. Why don't we close the public hearing and then we'll close with him, probably, if that works. So we'll close the public hearing and then I'll ask Mr. Plattner to wrap things up. So if you're in favor of closing the public hearing at this point, say aye. If you're opposed, say nay. Jason Wienerman,
Aye.
Sean Blackburn,
Aye.
Jason Crone,
Aye.
Ken Mossman,
Aye.
Mike Perrell,
Aye.
Rich Blankish.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Public hearing is closed. So, Mr. Plattner, if you want to sum up any issues with this issue before we go to the findings of fact, that would be great.
Do you want to go ahead and share what you wanted to tell them?
Oh, since I've been down at the shoreline most of the summer down there, is I've been raking the weeds and the muck out of there and piling it up on it. The only thing is when you pile it up there, that eventually will probably slide right back in the lake. So since I've been piling up there and all this vegetation is growing, there's actually sand down there now. It's hard bottom. Actually, sand is starting to come up now. But then what do you do with all that muck that's sitting there? It's going to slide right back into the water where I'm working so hard to get it up. So you don't put if you don't put any kind of barrier there or whatever to keep it from sliding back in, then I know all the work for the sand was is going to disappear and fish usually like sand, crappies and sunnies and all those. Anyways, trying to clean it up some. And then of course I'm taking out cans and bottles and glass. And this piece of plywood that's down there, 4 by 8 or bigger, must be a fish house or something that's been floated in there years ago, and I'm gonna go up there and try to pull it out of there. It's for me myself. And it's in the water. It's a pretty big sheet here. And then of course, I noticed this morning I had pictures where the stakes were the high water mark. They're actually kind of bending over, just the ice pushing already. You can see the ice is pushing up. So.
Okay, thank you.
I do like to have some rock along the shoreline just to kind of protect it from that kind of erosion.
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. I have a question for Mr. Plattner, if that would be appropriate.
Go ahead.
Mr. Plattner, did I hear you right when you were saying you weren't sure about putting in the rock riprap or the boulder
wall?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to particularly go there because those boulders have to come down that hill, and you're going to tear that hill up. And that's a sandy loam. I'm going to have to figure out, if I put rock there, I have to figure out a different way to protect the hill. And I do have a trail on one side coming down by the tree there. How to get that rock down there, put a barrier if I do get rock down there, because it's that is sensitive part. That pole is sensitive. That whole hill is sensitive. It's sandy loam. You tear that up, you're not no way to fix that up right, I don't think. The vegetation, everything else, I like to put grass and everything in there too. And in my demonstration, in my views, I have like a little place for the deer to come down and drink water and stuff like that. And like 2 places for a dock, another dock well out farther in the future where he can sunbathe out there, of course. In my plan, of course, can't use my plan, you have to use his plan, I guess.
Well, just to clarify, we're approving what's been submitted to us.
Right.
So this is what you're expected to build within the time frame.
I mean, I have to build a boulder wall too, if I don't want it?
You wouldn't have to put it in, but if I'm for staff to correct me, if he chooses to modify the design, that would require a permit amendment.
Why?
Mr. Chair,
Well, I'm not going to go with his plan, then I'll have to find somebody else. Saying if he's got to do with his plan, find somebody else then. And I'm not approving that plan. So then what I do is go through the whole thing over again or what? And get somebody else? I don't mind the rock in there, riff rock in there, but I don't think sitting out there like that on out there sticking out.
I think,
You know,
Mr.
my opinion. So, you know, if I don't approve his plan, then I have to go with him or what? What do I do?
Mr. Plattner, you don't need to go with his plan. First of all,
Okay.
second of all, it's not approved yet, so I wouldn't worry about.
Forgive me for speaking out of turn.
Right, that's okay. But first, it would have to be approved, and I don't know that you're going to have a very good chance of getting this approved. So if you did do something different, you would need to come back with an actual plan. What I would advise you to do, and if I get a chance, I'll talk to you in person, but to explain to you, you need to listen to what the staff is sharing with you when they're on site and take their direction and leadership in kind of containing and getting whatever you might want to do a little bit more zeroed in. So they certainly have tried to do that, and I understand that there are some communication issues, but right now, for our purposes, we either have to recommend approval, or recommend denial of what we're seeing in front of us.
Okay. Forgive me for not speaking in turn.
No, that's okay. And again, what I would suggest you do is once you have a better idea of what it is you want to do, then meet with staff again and take their direction probably a little bit more to heart. So there's no sense in continuing probably to discuss this at this point. Why don't we do the findings of fact, and then that might help navigate us through this process. So the findings of fact, number one, is the proposal consistent with the existing county ordinance? Specify section ordinance and discuss why or why not.
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone, I have a tough time finding it being consistent with any of the existing ordinances or standards. There's not really a demonstrated need for erosion control here, so that riprap is tough.
Two, are there any other standards, rules, requirements the proposal must meet?
Mr. Chair, Sean Blackburn. It's actually the demonstrated need for the riprap is not there because of the fact that there is no demonstrated erosion problem. So that answers your question about that right there.
And the standards, if it were recommended, would be covered by the staff recommendations. Three, is the proposed use compatible with the present and future land uses of the area?
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. There is some development on either side, but that's the current project wouldn't be appropriate with the current land use. It would be a pretty major change to the land use. So I don't believe it's consistent with the current or future land use.
Four, how are the potential environmental impacts, groundwater, surface water, air quality, wellhead protection of the proposal being addressed?
Mr. Chair, from the environmental impacts, I think introducing rock riprap into a back bay where they're not naturally found creates issues actually for the surrounding properties by creating different wave action and just a different environment than what's around it in the bay. So it does impact both the water environment and the shoreline environment.
Number five, how will the potential impacts of the proposal affect the property values in the area which it's proposed?
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. That's unpredictable at this time. Nothing's been presented one way or the other.
Six, how does the proposal affect the general health, safety, welfare of the residents?
Mr. Chair, I think minimally.
7, does the proposal conform to the goals and objectives of this county comprehensive plan? Specify which goals and objectives.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Blankish. I'm going to say it doesn't in regards to the water resource policies. Number 1, adhere to adopted plans and regulations that maintain, restore, and enhance the county's water resources. I don't see how that project does that.
8, has the applicant provided financial assurance, guarantee, reclamation, or cleanup?
Mr. Chair, that's not part of this discussion at any time.
Not applicable, yes. 9, other issues pertinent to the matter. I would say that there were 7 site visits on the property with the property owner, and several discussions on what is trying to be done here. So with that, a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. I move that we provide a recommendation of not to approve to the county board.
Motion's made by Wienerman to recommend denial of the application.
I'll second that. This is Rich.
Okay, Rich Blankish seconds it. Any discussion on that? If not, if you're for not recommending denial to the board, say aye. If you're opposed, say nay.
Mr. Chair, I didn't get a chance. Came back into the meeting here.
Okay.
Just other issues. Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay. Other issues that are pertinent. The applicant wasn't in full support of the plan either. I think that's worth noting.
Okay.
Because it wasn't he wasn't in support necessarily about what was proposed with the rock being related to the patio, the wall.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll add that to the other issues then. So motion's been made by Wienerman, second by Blankish. Recommend denial of the application. If you're in favor of that motion, say aye. If you're opposed, say nay. Jason Wienerman.
Aye.
Sean Blackburn.
Aye.
Jason Crone.
Aye.
Ken Mossman.
Aye.
Mike Perrell.
Aye.
Rich Blankish.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The recommendation is not to recommend approval by the county board. We're going to let Jennifer regroup here and come back in.
Mr. Chair, when is the county board meeting?
March 2nd.
So the applicant can.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
is Mr. Plattner still there?
I think he's disconnected, and we might be better off not having
Further discussion.
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Okay. Mr. Plattner, I appreciate you coming here. I think Commissioner Bertram had mentioned, you know, we'd like you to see if you can have discussion with staff and take the information from staff to make the adjustments on that property that can be done if you'd like to get some development on that property. So, you know, they were there 7 times and they're quite a resource. And as far as coming up with a plan, it would be best to follow their leads of what are the most appropriate practices there. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, talk to me somewhere, I guess.
Okay.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is item number 2. George Myers Cozy Corners Campground, Richmond, Minnesota. We'll have the staff report.
Good evening, Planning Commission members. This item is a request to amend conditional use permit P-017304, which allowed an expansion of Cozy Corners Campground. This property is on Long Lake in section 1 of Eden Lake Township. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the conditional use permit that was the Planning Commission held a public hearing for it in October, and the county commissioners ended up approving it in January. And that was for the expansion 49 new units and 11 relocated sites, along with a list of conditions. Mr. Myers has submitted a request to amend the permit. So there's 4 items that he has requested. Number 1, he wants to rearrange the sites, mainly to be further away from the drain field, provide a little more separation from the path that's going down to the docks. Moving one site into that Circle Road area, site number 31, and then move one site on the very south end. So that's the first part of the request. The second part of the request, initially he was going to attach 15 acres to the campground to accommodate his density. He's requesting to not attach 15 acres and sell some land to a neighbor. And thirdly, he would like the no trespassing sign condition removed. So he was to post no trespassing signs on the fence that's erected on the property line with the Zimmerman-Ledoux property. And the fourth request is to remove the requirement for a licensed surveyed plan before renting out the new sites. The condition was to have a plan for the whole campground prepared by a surveyor, so we have a good site plan for the whole resort before renting out the new sites. So those are the changes he's requesting. To those points, what we discovered in stepping back and analyzing the whole resort density to make sure he could sell some of that land in tiers 1 and 2 to the neighbor, it came to light that he actually doesn't have, he can't sell that land to the neighbor and maintain the density that he wants. So that part's coming off the table. He's actually exceeds the density in tier 2 by 5 sites. So what he's going to do is eliminate 5 sites from tier 2 in his expansion. So there's a map that where he actually crossed one page up, Shelley. The previous, yep, there you go. So he crossed off in blue there 11 sites, or I'm sorry, 5 sites. So those 5 will be eliminated. And so then his expansion, instead of 49 new sites, it ends up being 44 new sites and still relocating 11. So this area here will have 55 sites instead of the 60. And then with that, his density works out. So looking at the recommended action, so the first point was to amend that condition 10. And we're fine amending that to say he needs to do an administrative subdivision to attach the amount of land required for the approved density. It's going to end up being about 15 acres per this plan, but we can change that language just so that when the survey is done, if it's a little more, a little less than 15 acres, we're okay. So changing that condition 10 to state that he has to attach the amount of land required for the approved density to the campground before recording, and record those documents by May 1st or before he does any ground disturbing activity out there. Let's see, and I'm on page 5 of the staff report, Shelley. Number 2, the Planning Commission should decide whether or not to remove that condition for the no trespassing signs. That was one of his requests. Number 3, amend condition 12. That's that site plan he has to do for the whole resort. So we're suggesting we would still like to see the site plan prepared by a surveyor for the entire resort showing all sites. We would be okay if that ends up being submitted after he gets the expansion constructed and moves the 11 sites and then have the site plan done. We would be okay with it being done at that time rather than doing it right away. So that's what number 3 states. And then number 4, have a full plan set and stormwater management plan submitted to reflect this new layout. Number 5, the old bathhouse shall be removed before adding the additional campsites to the license. Removing that old bathhouse in tier 2 allows his density to work out, and that was George's plan anyway. And number 6, all other conditions of the original CUP shall remain in full force and effect. So I hopefully you that made sense, but if you have any questions, let me know. And then we had 2 letters submitted from the same member, one member of the public.
Okay, we'll get to that later. And then for the site visit, thank you, Jennifer, for the site visit. Again, if you were there the last couple of months, it doesn't have to be this month. If we've been there, let's remind each other if you were there. If you visit the site in the last month or 2 during this application process, say aye. If you were not, then say no. Jason Wienerman?
Aye.
Sean Blackburn?
Aye.
Jason Crone?
Aye.
Ken Mossman?
Aye.
Mike Burrell?
Aye.
Rich Blankish?
Back in October.
Commissioner Persky?
Aye.
And I visited the site as well. Is George with us tonight? George, are you with us? Do we have him online? And just for the record, this is for the amended CUP, not the entire CUP. This public hearing is only for the amended CUP.
Mr. Chair, this is Ken Mossman. Is this an all or nothing, or could we approve some of these and not others?
That's Jennifer, a technical question. Hang on one second. She's trying to reach George. Or maybe Shelley, you know.
I just asked Deb if he was on, so I haven't heard anything at this point.
Ken's question, he said, is this an all or nothing application?
Oh, no.
Or, okay.
You certainly have the right to look at any of the amendments and make decision on any portions of the amendments. So you may want to just look at them one at a time, and I can pull that slide back up.
And then just for clarification again, Ken, it would only be the amended request, not the original. It would only be for the 5 recommended. I think it was
That's
5.
correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Ken asked Jennifer if it's an all or nothing, or if we could change anything. And I said, and Shelley just said, it's the 5 amended recommendations that we can discuss and change, not the entire CUP. Okay.
Yep, that's correct.
Just bringing you up to speed.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
did George?
real quick.
Yeah, while we're waiting for him to come online, I have a question.
I think Rich was trying to say something. Go ahead, Rich.
Oh,
No, I wasn't, Jeff. I was just leaning in to read. I couldn't read the 6 recommendations that were being
got it.
changed.
Go ahead, Commissioner Persky.
Jennifer, Shelley, on the density question, and then the added land to that, is that land going to be added as open space, and so that would just go into it to kind of deplete the density to make it so that it would be up to snuff, and then that would then be green space that would not be developable in the future, similar to let's say a lot that exceeds pervious surface, and they buy the next door lot and add it becomes 1. Now they've met the standard. Is that the intent?
Yes, Commissioner Persky, that's exactly the intent.
Okay, so that would then be open space, and then the boundaries for the development that's there. However, he could, if he's got property that extends further, I believe, to the south, he could add, if he then could get that density, again, by additional space, if we would allow it, correct?
Yes, Commissioner Persky, he could add more space in the future if he wanted to do additional expansion. That's correct.
But he would have to add more property, of course.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just texted George. He says he's on. He says, I can't get there. I'm on the site, but I can't get the mic unmuted.
Okay.
So Deb, I'm not sure if you know how to help George get his mic unmuted.
And Deb did send him a new meeting invite, so I'm hoping he'll click on that one.
Okay, I'll tell him.
I currently don't see George connected at all. So I have a call-in user that I've unmuted.
Could we call him on his cell phone and put the cell phone on a mic?
I told him to just try the new link that was just sent.
Okay.
So hopefully
Let's try that. Yeah, let's try that. And then if that doesn't work, is there a way that we could call him on his cell phone and
yes,
put the cell phone on a mic?
I can do a speaker if it doesn't work.
Okay, let's plan a plan B then.
Okay, I'm
back. Jason, go ahead.
Hey, while we wait for that, a question for staff. What I'm taking away from this is that it seems like staff has worked with the applicant and seems to be pretty good with everything. The biggest question or debate on this one really is number 2, as far as for the Planning Commission to decide, is this something that, it's a more debatable thing. The other things seem more like little technical changes that make it work based on densities and stuff. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, Commissioner Crone, yeah, I would say that's a fair assessment.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rich.
I was going to ask staff also on looking at number 3. Did staff line that out where it says prior in regards to having a surveyed site plan prior to adding the additional recreational campground allowances to the current license? Should there not be a surveyed layout of how everything is going to be so staff can see before they start moving ground around, locating drain fields, where the roads are? Everything should be laid out. It's like when you build a home, you have to have a plot plan, show the location of the house, everything that's attached to it, the driveways. If you are in a rural setting, you have to show the location of your septic system and everything. I don't know what's different from that to what we were requesting originally here in regards to having a proper plan before there's groundbreaking. Am I wrong on this? That's an open question to everybody.
Jennifer, what's your response?
Chair Bertram, George is on.
Okay. Just hold that thought for a second, Jennifer. George, are you with us? You can hear us?
Yes.
Okay, welcome. You want to state your name and address for the record, please?
George Myers, 19897 State Highway 22, Richmond, Minnesota, 56368.
Okay, and then just to bring you up to speed, I don't know how much you heard. We've had the staff report. I reminded everybody that our purview tonight is the 5, or is it 6 or is it 5? Recommended is 6. Recommended amended to the CUP, not the entire CUP, and so we're discussing items 1 through 6. Do you have anything to share at this point? There was just some questions being asked about number 2 and number 3, but do you have something to share before we get into that part of it, George?
I guess I don't know what I'm sharing right now, but the reason I put in for them signs, I don't know of any place that the neighbor puts the signs up for no trespassing. And whose name am I supposed to put? His name on there, or what am I supposed to do? You know, it's my land. They're not trespassing my land. If they go over that fence, they'd be trespassing his land. So he should be putting a no trespassing sign up. Is the way I would understand it. Or do I put him up and put his name on there, or what? I don't know. I guess that's a question I have. And then I don't know where else we are here with this, the drawings, I guess. We never had to have that type of drawing before. We got a layout here. They got a layout of the campground, but now we want an official survey of the campground for everything. I don't know why that's got to be done. And we did it for the stuff for the new part is all done already. And a lot of the other stuff has been scale drawings too for the campground, other than the stuff that was here before I came here. I'm just trying to make it better, but I guess if we got to have it before, I guess we got to have it before. But I guess I'm confused by all that, but whatever. Right now, that's all I got, I guess.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
It's Shelley Benson. One of the things George had shared with me earlier is that he was not necessarily sure about which sites he was going to move out of the existing location. And it was going to take a little bit of effort to figure that out. So he didn't want to necessarily create the site plan without figuring that out. And I think there was some debate on George's side about which sites in Tier 2 on the existing part he was going to move. And Liz, that's the comments that George, you've given me before. So I think that was kind of one of the reasonings you had given me for to not have the site plan drawn up at this time. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yeah, I guess my biggest reason was not doing it right away is I don't like to upset people. They've been in them areas. Some of them people have been in there for years. And my plan was to, as people want to sell or leave, them would be the sites that I would move over to the new area and then rearrange that once that happens. I was just trying to be good to all my tenants here. And when I get towards the end, then there's going to be the last people that moved in there. If nobody moved out or not enough of them moved out, I was going to have the last people in the area are going to have to move, but I was going to give them time. That was the reason for the 5-year deal. We did this before when I moved them, and it worked very well. I guess that's why I did it again this way.
And I think the question when you joined us, George, that Commissioner Blankish asked was about the surveying that normally, and I don't know if you want to repeat your question, Rich, or...
I just making a point that before you break ground, I'm thinking about the new sites now. If everything is surveyed, Stearns County staff would know exactly what you have laid out, where it is. Even potential tenants would know ahead of time. I think of when they do a housing development, you know where the lots are, you know where the corners are, all of that kind of stuff. That was my question. I just think you don't go ahead with a project this size willy-nilly. You have a surveyed layout, so people doing the contracting, the earth moving, everybody knows what's going on according to that plan. I mean, I'm just thinking that it potentially it could eliminate a lot of headaches. And I'm glad you made the statement about the moving of the 5 or 6 lots you have to move in regards to your tenants and how they may how they would feel about that. So I understand that, but so my thinking is, okay, if you have the new area is surveyed, everything is laid out accurately. As time goes on, you say you want a 5-year window to move those 5. Is that correct?
No.
No?
You're talking in the new area, the expansion?
No, I'm
area?
asking you about, you say you need to remove 5 sites from your current
Yeah, there's
campground.
11 sites.
11 sites.
11 sites, excuse me, I was wrong there. But you need 5 years to move the 11 due to whatever happens to the tenants, correct?
Yeah, I'm trying to be fair to my tenants. I mean, you know, if they're only a couple years away from leaving or whatever, and the first one's out, some people don't want to leave, but they might get forced to leave. And there's some people that are going to leave anyway. You know, I got some older tenants in there. And if you give them 5 years and they know what's going on, you know, somebody will make a decision. It seems to work. I don't know. It just seems like I try to be fair to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair.
Jennifer?
And Commissioner Blankish. So I think the question of having 5 years to relocate the sites isn't at issue because that was approved by the board. But the question is the timing on that site, that full-blown site plan for the whole resort. Do we want that up front now? Or are we okay waiting till those 11 sites have been moved so then the site plan reflects which 11 sites are gone? Maybe it would be more accurate. Well, it would be more accurate if it waits till the end, which it could be 5 years then before we get that full-blown site plan. To Commissioner Blankish's point, should he have a surveyor come out and stake the expansion road center line so that he knows where that needs to go? That's a fair point, something the commission can discuss. But then the other question is that big site plan for the whole resort, should that be done now before he rents any new sites out, or can it wait till the 11 sites are relocated?
And I think well, the way I'm thinking is a survey, if it's a property line, like if you're going to build on a lot or you're looking for property lines, then a survey is extremely important, obviously, right up front. We're not discussing the property lines. We know where the property lines are. We also know how many units he will be able to add. And so now it's just a matter of how they're going to be added. And I guess I'm comfortable with how it's evolved and how these things were not 100% sealed prior to them being involved, but then once they are established, then it's confirmed. And then that way, replacement models or whatever, then we know what the actual placements are. So personally, I don't see a need to do that now. We know where the property lines are. We know how many units he's going to be allowed to add, how many new units he needs to move. So all of that's in flux. And I guess I'm trying to think if I was one of those and I wouldn't want someone coming up and telling me you got to move by June or May or something where you probably won't affect anybody for 3 years or something. So I'd be less inclined to think that we have to do that now. That's my 2 cents. Others?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky here. I would agree with you. The only thing that I would be concerned about would be that we wouldn't move in new sites and locate new sites and saying that that one over there is going to be removed until it's been removed. So in other words, you cannot exceed the count. That's the final goal at the end. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I am, and Jennifer's nodding that that's the way it's going to happen. Right, Jennifer?
Yep,
Okay.
That's a very good clarification, though. These 55 sites can't all be rented so 44 sites can be rented right off the bat, and then the other 11 have to wait until they come out of the old area. Yep, good point.
Okay.
So the 11 that are added and the 11 that are taken out, that's what we're really talking about. That potentially could have time to evolve and taking them out and placing them accordingly. So that's that 5-year plan that I feel comfortable with.
Yeah, and this is Rich again, and I agree. The 5-year plan is not an issue here. It's just, can staff walk out there right now and say, okay, there's a site here, there's a site here, there's a site here on the new expansion? Or here's the center line of the road. We don't have anything.
Correct. and maybe George can speak to that too. I believe the engineer has marked out the center line of the road. Granted, he's an engineer and not a surveyor, but I know the road area is marked, and I believe that's about it. But maybe George can speak to that more.
Okay.
Yeah, we marked the center of the road, and there's got to be some field put in where some of the road is. That part is not marked. Other than that, the center of the road's pretty well marked. You can drive back there and follow every 50 feet. He put a stake, so you can pretty much see the layout right now of the road.
Okay. Other discussion?
Mr. Chair, this is Ken Mossman. There's also, like Rich said, to survey it. Well, he's not selling the property to these people. He's still going to be the sole owner. He's just renting them their little spots. So
Thank you.
This agreement about the spot, that's his problem to figure it out between the neighbors, right? It's not like it has to be surveyed because he's not selling them 700 square feet. He's just leasing it to them or renting it, right?
Yes, that's correct. The sites will be rented. Yep. And George will own it all.
So, you know, I guess that's my thought about why survey it when he's still going to own it all.
Okay, was that you?
Mr. Chair?
Yep, Jason, go ahead. Yep.
I'm just going to kind of echo those comments, though. I think between the stormwater management plan and the engineering that's done for the roadways, there's a lot of things that are being checked. And when it comes to important drainage issues and things like that, when it comes to the actual locations of the lots, not to Ken's point, it's more of the owner's issue at that point. So I'm fine with the surveying being done after the fact, 5 years from now when all the lots are finalized.
Okay, other members?
Mr. Chair, Sean Blackburn. Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. I think it makes sense. I appreciate Rich's thought, but the point is they're taking out the prior to is the adjustment, and that's the point of what they're asking for while they're talking about when this plan gets made and how we're going to amend that. But I also wanted to touch briefly on George's questions on number 2. And actually, when I read that, I had the same kind of questions. Basically, whose idea was this? What side of the line and which direction are these signs supposed to be facing? And why is someone being forced to put those up?
And I think, I guess the thought that came to me is on our land, I put up the no trespassing sign, no hunting signs. I have to put them so many 100 feet apart. I have to have a name and the contact on there. It's my land. I'm trying to, make sure that people understand they can't come onto my land. And so if you have a fence, now there's no fence around our land. If there's a fence, well, obviously, that you can't walk through the fence, or if you jump over the fence, you're leaving somebody's property or you're coming onto somebody's property. So I don't see the need or the wisdom in doing no trespassing signs.
Mr. Chair, Ken Mossman here. He's trying to say, and I agree with him, why should I have them so people don't stray off of my property? That'd be like if you'd put them on your property so people wouldn't go onto the neighbor's property. I don't see you doing that, or I wouldn't do it.
Right, and that's my point. So I agree with you. I don't put it on to keep them off my neighbor's property. I put them on to keep them off our property. And if there's a fence there, you obviously know that that's a line. So,
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. From some of the comments in the public testimony and the notes, I think the concern with the no trespassing sign was people leaving the campground and going onto the adjacent parcels. So that was the intent of trying to prevent trespass. For people who may not be aware, there's a parcel line.
And I think you're accurate, and that was before the fence. Now there's going to be a fence there. There was no fence there. And there was some testimony that the fence was supposed to be put up, and it wasn't. I'm not sure where that's at, but now we do know a fence is going to be put up. So you're right. That was the testimony without a fence, but there will be a fence now.
Mr. Chair, Mike Pearl, I still believe, even with the fence put in, I think it's the duty of the property owner of this development here to help with the no trespassing signs with the public or his customers, whatever, knowing that that is a property line and it's no trespassing. I think it's on him to inform the public.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Sean, I got to say that there's certainly better ways that they could go about doing that. And yes, they can inform people. It can be as part of your guides, your basic tenets, as you're expected to stay off of the neighbor's property. I don't understand what's difficult about that.
Okay.
Well, Mr.
Chair,
hang on one second, Joe.
The applicant's there. George, how long is that fence going to be? I'm just looking at 1,000 feet. That's a fifth of a mile. And so we're talking about one sign in a fifth of a mile. If that fence is 2/10 of a mile long, I mean, that's one sign in the middle. So I'm just curious, first of all, how long is that? The other thing is on the wooded area too. If I wanted to keep people off the wooded area of my property, I should put those signs up. They shouldn't be coming from the property that you're leaving. It should be on the property that you're entering that says no trespass.
I agree with you. That's why I don't understand why I'm putting them up.
George, how long is that fence going to be?
Well, it's about 1,300 feet each way, north and south and east and west, roughly. It's about 2,600 feet of pipe. I ordered enough fence posts for 2,600 feet, posts every 10 foot. So.
Okay. So technically, probably have 2 or 3 signs. But again, as some of the other commissioners have mentioned, that shouldn't be your problem because the trespass is on the other side of the fence.
I agree. I could never understand it. I missed that part of the meeting last time to speak up on that. I didn't know that was discussed already. I had problems with getting on last time too.
Yeah, so well, and at $3 a sign, we're talking about less than $10. So I think we should maybe move on to another subject. I'm okay with not having the signs on your onus.
I kind of heard 2 members say that they thought their sign should go up, and the rest of the members, except for one, I got the impression that he shouldn't have to. Is that accurate, or should we just do an informal roll? Should we do a vote? I didn't hear what you said, John.
Straight up, let's just do a vote.
Okay, we'll do a vote. So if you, we won't make a motion, we'll just do a vote, a poll. If you think he should put the signs up, say yes. If you think he doesn't need to put the signs up, say no. Jason Wienerman.
Yes.
Sean Blackburn.
No.
Jason Crone.
No.
Ken Mossman.
No.
Mike Farrell.
Yes.
Rich Blankish.
No.
And I think he does not or should not have to. So 5-2, we're saying he doesn't have to put up the sign. And then the other issue is the surveying. Should we do the same thing on that? Or I think the consensus was expressed majority that the survey can wait. Or do you want us to vote on that, Rich?
Being that there's going to be a survey of the completed project, I mean the whole resort campground later, fine, you need the 5 years, I understand all of that. It's just that opening up the new one, I thought, well, everything else we've ever approved has a site survey layout of where everything is. But I'll say, let's approve it, number 3.
Okay. Any other members have any input on that stuff? If not, then we're going to open the public hearing. We do have a letter we won't do right now, but to my knowledge, no one's in the other room. Is there anyone online that wants to share anything on this amended application? And the comments have to be limited to the amendment that's before us. So is there anyone online that wants to share something? No one's in the other room. Is there anyone online? Motion to close the public hearing would be, oh, wait, I'm sorry. Let's do the letter. We do have one letter.
All right, we had actually 2 letters submitted by the same landowner, Mike Rosiski. So the first letter received back on February 2nd essentially was a few questions asking whether the application was complete and whether notice had been put in the paper. Questioned which sites were being moved, wanted clarity on that. He made a point that adding sites to Tier 1 is not consistent with the comp plan's goal of clustering development away from the shoreline. He questioned how this request on attaching 15 acres is different than the original request. He pointed out that this increases the population density in the 840 zone, which is not a use allowed by right, and the board has the authority to impose conditions on CUPs. There's a documented history of trespass from Cozy Corners onto the neighbor's property. He assumed that a site plan prepared by a surveyor is a standard condition applied to RV campgrounds. And he asked whether the sites could be leased out before we've issued the license for that expansion. And the answer is no. And also made a comment that it's disturbing that so soon after obtaining the CUP approval that he's chipping away at the conditions, which were minimal at best. And then the second letter received from Mike Rosiski indicates that he respectfully requests the county deny item 3, requesting removing the condition of no trespassing signs. He also requests the county deny the request to remove the condition of doing the site plan prepared by a surveyor for the entire resort. He didn't see in the plan where it showed a specific proposal for access to the docks and asked for details on that. And he expressed concern about the timeframes for complying with the conditions. He felt many of the timeframes weren't discussed or considered by the Planning Commission or County Board, and was concerned about the long length of time for complying with the conditions. And he asked that the letter be sent to the Planning Commission as part of the public hearing record. So the commissioners did receive these letters via email yesterday, and so that's all I have for public input.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, we all received them, and I'm sure most of us read them. So, and now we heard your report. So now the motion to close the public hearing would be in order.
Mr. Chair, Sean Blackburn, I move we close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Jason Crone seconds.
Okay. Sean Blackburn moves to close the public hearing. Jason Crone seconds it. Any discussion? If not, if you're in favor of closing public hearing, say aye. If you're opposed, say nay. Jason Wienerman?
Aye.
Sean Blackburn?
Aye.
Jason Crone?
Aye.
Ken Mossman?
Aye.
Mike Perrell?
Aye.
Rich Blankish?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Public hearing is closed. Anything you want to wrap up with, George? Commission members, any questions? Or George, you want to wrap anything up?
No, I think you guys did a pretty good job of going over everything.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. Jason?
Jason, just one clarification as we move forward. So the recommended action is we're striking the no trespassing, so we're moving condition 3B, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Correct.
Okay.
So let's do the findings. Number one, is the proposal consistent with existing county ordinance standards?
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. I got to open the right box so I know what I'm talking about. Come on. Yes, it is applicable to the county ordinance, land use and zoning ordinance 439, sections 4.8, 6.48, and 10.2.23.
Are there other standards, rules, or requirements that the proposal must meet?
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. I think we're amending the conditional use permit to do the amount of land required for the approved density. So the modifications of 1 and 3 as presented in the staff report, and we're removing 3B.
3, is the proposed use compatible with the present and future land uses in the area? Can it be separated by distance screening from adjacent land uses?
Mr. Chair, it is compatible, mostly with just it's as an expansion of itself. So it certainly is compatible.
And it is being separated by the fence. 4, are the environmental concerns, groundwater, surface water, air quality, that should be addressed as part of the proposal?
Mr. Chair, some of them are being affected by the proposal in the stormwater plans.
5, has information been provided regarding the impact property values in the area? It is not. 6, what potential public health, safety, traffic generation impacts does the proposal have in relation to the area?
Mr. Chair, the impact would be minimal.
7, how does the proposal affect general health, safety, welfare of the residents?
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone, I think these condition changes have minimal impact from the previous CUP.
8, does the proposal conform to the goals and objectives of the county comprehensive plan?
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone again. I would go with the nature goals. In this case, ensuring the reasonable and responsible use of the county's natural resources, including land, surface, groundwater, minerals, open space, wetlands, wildlife, and woodlands.
9, how does the proposal affect existing public services, facilities, schools, parks, utilities?
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. Should be minimal.
10, has the applicant provided financial assurance? It's not applicable. 11, other issues pertinent to the matter. I think it should be noted that, what were there, three public hearings? Minimally 3.
Yep.
But there were 3 public hearings and adequate input, public input. And 2 of those public hearings were with us. One was with the county board. Well, actually 2. So there was 4, and then there's going to be a 5th one for taking the recommendation that we're going to offer tonight. So 5 public hearings. Well, the next one's not a public hearing. They're acting on this. So I guess the point is there was adequate public hearings. So with that, a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone, recommend approval of the conditions, with the exception of, I guess, original condition 3B, which is line 2 on the revised conditions.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that. This is Ken Mossman.
Okay. Motion's been made by Crone, second by Mossman. Recommend approval of the county board. March 2nd is that meeting. Any discussion? If not, if you're in favor of recommending to the county board approval of the amended application, say yes. If you're opposed, say no. Jason Wienerman?
Yes.
Sean Blackburn?
Yes.
Jason Crone?
Yes.
Ken Mossman?
Yes.
Mike Perrell?
No.
Rich Blankish?
No.
And the chair votes aye. So the recommendation is made to the county board. Item number 3, thank you, George. Item number 3,
You're welcome.
consider a request for a conditional use permit submitted by Minnesota East Regal LLC, Minneapolis, and Brian Carolyn Cash, Painesville. Jennifer will do the staff report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request for a CUP submitted by Minnesota East Regal LLC and Brian and Carolyn Cash to construct a 1 megawatt solar garden in the A40 zoning district. This property lies east of County Road 130 in Section 8 of Painesville Township. You may remember this property was recently rezoned from T20 to A40. And so being A40 now, they have the opportunity to request the CUP for the solar garden. In this vicinity, directly south, 18 acres was also rezoned previously to A40. Same property owners, different applicant to rezone that. We have not had a request for a solar garden CUP on the 18 acres to the south, but we do have the one before us tonight for the 10 acres that was rezoned in January. So the area that they are proposing this solar garden is not within any overlays, no shoreline, no areas of concern, as noted in the zoning ordinance. The access would be off of County Road 130, so they would need an approach permit from the Highway Department. There is potential wetland that's shown on the site plan. It's kind of a yellow squiggle line. And so the plan was amended to avoid that potential wetland area. Once the growing season is upon us come spring, wetland staff will do a site visit and determine if in fact that's wetland or not. If it's not wetland, the solar developer may modify the plan then to have the panels in that area. At this time, they're showing that they can avoid it if need be. One other thing too that we reviewed is the Minnesota DNR has a National Heritage Information System map. And this property lies within 1 mile of a site that has rare plants or animals, native plant communities, or other rare features. So within 1 mile, we've got something rare or unique. And therefore, we sent the plans to the DNR and asked for input on it and whether there's any specific conditions that the DNR recommends for the solar garden. That we haven't heard back from them yet. So I'm hoping we'll get comments from them before the commissioners meeting on March 2nd. So the property, as you see, is farmland, fairly flat, a bit of a slope, not too much though. Let's see. So again, it's going to be 1 megawatt. So for that size of a solar garden, we do request a $185,000 cash escrow or letter of credit to cover the decommissioning costs. They're not proposing any vegetative screening around the solar garden. They are going to erect a 7-foot chain link fence. The ground cover will be planted with pollinator-friendly habitat meeting state statute requirements. Again, a financial guarantee would be needed to ensure that that gets planted properly. The LISA scores were run for this property, and you saw this too for the rezoning, but the full 159 acres that Cash owns Cash's own, the Lisa score came back at 53.98. This particular 10 acres where the solar garden would sit came back at 63.25. So about 10 points higher for this 10 acres. So if the Planning Commission were to recommend approval, there's 7 conditions we're suggesting. 1, they'd have an engineer certify the foundation and design of the panels is within accepted professional standards before we'd issue the construction permit. 2, submit the manufacturing specifications for the equipment. 3, a financial guarantee required for the decommissioning. And on that note, the permittee shall notify the county at least 1 year before decommissioning that they're intending to do that. And so at that time, we would request an updated decommissioning estimate, and then they would have to submit a financial guarantee to cover any additional expense they're expecting on top of the $185,000 that was originally submitted. The board may increase the financial guarantee required for decommissioning upon application to amend the CUP. So the 4th condition would be covering that the ground cover. The ground cover shall be planted to meet the Minnesota statute beneficial habitat standard. And so that condition covers that. The cash escrow or letter of credit needs to be submitted to ensure that that is properly seeded and established. The ground cover shall be maintained for the life of the project. They'd have to submit an established project assessment form every 3 years to make sure that habitat is being maintained. A seeding plan review and inspection fee need to be paid before issuing the construction permit. That covers reviewing that plan and then inspections for the first 3 years and every 3rd year after that. Also notify the department when the site is seeded and who the contact will be for inspections. The 5th condition would be notifying the department upon any change in project ownership, including new contact information. The developer shall make the landowner aware of all conditions related to the CUP. Number 6, all conditions related to the property being add conditions related to the property being within 1 mile of a mapped NHIS site, if recommended by the DNR. And 7, the solar garden shall comply with the Wetland Conservation Act. If it's determined the panels can go straight on the south line in compliance with the Wetland Conservation Act, then the plan may be modified to allow that. So that's all I have for the staff report. I don't have any correspondence from the public on this one.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. If members visited the site either during the rezoning or now regarding this application, say yes when I call your name. Jason Wienerman.
Yes.
Sean Blackburn.
Yes.
Jason Crone.
Yes.
Ken Mossman.
Yes.
Mike Burrell.
Yes.
Rich Blankish.
Yes.
Commissioner Persky.
Yes.
And so did I. Applicant introductions. Understand Cindy Larson O'Neill is with us. I'm not sure if the caches are or not, but who's ever with us, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's Cindy Larson O'Neill. I'm project manager with Renesola Power from the office in Minneapolis. Yeah, I believe, well, yep, that's me.
Are the caches with us?
Yes, this is Brian Cash.
You want to state your name for the address for the record?
Yes, Brian Cash, 2 Cedar Place, Trimont, Minnesota, 56176.
Okay. Is Carolyn with us too?
No, she's not.
Okay. Anyone else with us? Okay. Hearing that. Anything you want to add, Brian or Ms. Larson O'Neill, to the staff report?
Hi, this is Cindy. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Planning Commissioners. I appreciate your time tonight. Just wanted to add that our company, Renesola Power, will be doing a full wetland delineation that we will submit to the jurisdiction. We also will be completing a full phase 1 environmental site assessment later in the process. And additionally, we will be completing critical issues assessment, and those will be done by environmental companies that will hire, that will address and work with the DNR issues. That covers anything with soils, land, water, federal and state species, and any cultural resources that we have. So we'll have a company that can address those issues and deal with anything the DNR comes back with us. Thank you.
Okay. Anything you want to add, Brian?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This particular 8 acres, I mean, this is by far the worst producing land that we have. It's pretty much on the edge of a gravel pit, or an old gravel pit. And, you know, production is very low. So the opportunity to have like a solar site like this will actually, you know, give us some additional income that can support the farm. And kind of looking at that LISA score, 63 is extremely low if I'm not mistaken. And the kind of that wetland area, the only time there's ever any water in that area is when we have torrential downpours, and it takes, you know, 2 weeks for it to finally soak its way through the gravel. Thank you.
I think the threshold is 65, right?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the threshold is 65 for egg transition. Yep.
Right. So it's not extremely low, Brian, but it's a little under the 65. And then, I don't know, I've driven by it probably 50 years of my life. I always saw crops on it. It has been farmed the entire time, Brian, hasn't it?
Yes, and on typical years, if we plant corn, it dries up, and our yield is well below 100 bushels an acre.
Sure. And then, Ms. O'Neill, you said that you'd submit the information to the jurisdiction. I assume that means the county, correct?
That is correct. It'd be the Soil and Water Conservation, WACA.
Got it.
Mr. Chair, for Stearns County, that comes directly to our office. The wetland delineation would be submitted to our office.
Do you understand that, Ms. Larson O'Neill?
Yes, exactly. I understand some jurisdictions, they're in separate offices, but I understand it's housed within the Stearns County offices there. The staff told me that. Thank you.
Okay. We'll open the, let's open the public hearing. To my knowledge, no one's in the room, no one's online with us, and there's no correspondence, correct? So is there anyone online with us that we're missing to weigh in on this item? Anybody online? If not, members, you can close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone, make a motion we close public hearing.
I'll second that. Rich.
Motion's been made by Crone, second by Blankish. Close the public hearing. Any discussion? If not, if you're in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye when I call your name. Jason Wienerman.
Aye.
Jason Wienerman. Sean Blackburn.
Aye. Aye.
Jason Crone.
Aye.
Ken Mossman.
Aye.
Mike Burrell.
Aye.
Richard Blankish.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Public hearing is closed. So discussion by members.
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. A question for Jennifer. Historically, when we've done these, we've seen a condition that says if the site isn't producing energy after a certain time, it shall be decommissioned and removed. Was that excluded here? Have we changed the policy on that?
Jennifer?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Wienerman, I don't recall that being a specific condition. I know some developers have that in their decommissioning plan, that if it sits idle for a period of 12 months, for example, that it would be decommissioned.
Okay, that's
I don't recall it. Okay.
Well, Jason, you're not the only one, then I guess I thought that was standard as well, so we may be somewhat confused on that. If it isn't, we maybe should make a note that we do that, because we did that with the wind turbines, and it just would make sense to do the same with solar panels. So if we have not consistently done that on all the projects, we may want to do that on this one and then moving forward. So we could add that as a additional condition. Or do members have an issue with that?
Mr. Chair, if I could add, I just pulled up the ordinance here real quick. Okay, so the ordinance does state decommission of solar panels must occur in the event they're not used for 12 consecutive months. The plan shall include provisions for removal of all structures, foundations, electrical equipment, etc. So my apologies, that's an ordinance requirement. So we could add that in the conditions just to be super clear to the developer that that's a requirement if you would like.
I think it just would be more transparent if we would reference the ordinance then, if nothing else. Again, on this one and any other one moving forward, only because it is an ordinance. And so, Jason, you and I totally haven't lost it. And two, just to highlight it, that it's there. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Thanks, Jason. Any other input, members?
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone, I appreciate the applicant coming and stating who farms the property, the condition of that particular area. That's helpful when trying to make decisions on some of these. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
How many solar farms do you have in Stearns County, Ms. Larson O'Neill?
Hi, we don't have any solar farms in Stearns County.
Okay. And then the 18 acres to the south, you kind of led the rezoning of the property and everything else. Is it your intent to locate a solar farm on that neighboring property as well?
We are not the company doing that project, no.
That is a different company.
Okay, that's a different company, because that's a new trend now that we're seeing to kind of get around the 1 megawatt limitation, is where solar farms are being sited side by side by different developers. So I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Persky.
Mr. Chair? Yes, along that line, Ms. O'Neill, Larson O'Neill and Brian, you're limiting this to a 1 megawatt. There's considerable land to the north of that that's, wide open. Did you consider putting in a larger solar garden with the entire piece?
Hi, this is Cindy. Excel Energy Community Solar Garden Program only allows 1 megawatt solar gardens. So no, our company would not do any more solar gardens on that parcel.
Okay, but you're saying that they only allow 1 megawatt or up to 1 megawatt?
Correct. The program is for 1 megawatt solar gardens.
And that's why, Commissioner Persky, that's why now we're seeing the new trend of doing the side-by-side solar projects, each 1 megawatt from 2 different companies. Ms. Larson O'Neill, in your report, you list that project will have subscribers. How many subscribers do you have identified at this point?
We do have a sales team, and they are starting to reach out to companies. Typically, our company subscribes to municipalities, school districts, clinics, healthcare centers, manufacturing plants that are in the county. And under the rules of the Excel Community Garden program, you have to have at least 4 subscribers on a garden. There is another scenario where you could have residential subscribers, but our company doesn't do that kind of subscription. We subscribe to the types of companies that I mentioned.
And that has to be within the county, correct?
It has to be within the county or within an adjacent county of where the solar garden is. So it'd be adjacent to Stearns County.
Okay. And I think, what is this about now? The 13th or 14th farm in Painesville Township, Zion, and about the 35th one in the county. So that might be more and more of a challenge in doing that. In your narrative that you provided, 3.1 on the collection and recycling, you say that you're going to be utilizing solar PV models with recycling plans to promote the collection and recycling modules, minimize the potential for modules to be disposed of at a municipal waste. Alternatively, solar panels with remaining useful life can be sold for other applications. I'm curious what the other applications are.
I'm sorry, I would have to gather information from our engineers to address that appropriately.
So staff can make a point to have that answered before the public hearing, before the county board takes this up. I'd appreciate that, because again, it's listed in your narrative. So, and then it's listed in the bullet points below that that you're going to manage the logistics of collecting the modules and providing packing, transportation to the recycling center. Where is the recycling center?
Right now, I know for sure there's one in Wisconsin that has been up and running for solar module recycling. I also know the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency is spending a lot of time on this topic and preparing for this topic. So we just constantly stay abreast of, where the opportunity will be for recycling when, the agency catches up. But, most of these gardens are at the beginning of their life. And so the planning is just kind of underway and to be determined, I would say, at this point. But for sure, there's recycling centers that take solar modules, and I know for sure one of them is in Wisconsin.
And for an item 2 for you to report back, then, if you don't mind, identify where that is and what company that is in Wisconsin, and then also what was the other? I'm having a brain drain here now. You said the recycling center.
Yeah, and the technology that's used to convert the equipment to other uses.
Right, but in this discussion, the second part of that would have been it says on the bottom sentence of that second bullet, any elements that can't be recycled or disposed of outside the project location municipality is at an environmentally friendly way. What's an environmentally friendly way?
Again, I would have to confer with our engineers to make sure I give you accurate information, but I'd be happy to follow up on that.
Sure. So that would be the third question then. And again, the concern, everybody knows, the concern that I have is, I hope I am still alive yet when this life expectancy of the solar farms. Unfortunately, I live in Painesville. I don't want my kids to have to deal with this. I have 2 sons that 9 out of 10 times are going to be living in Painesville. I'm concerned. We don't have a good plan. If you think I'm going to trust PCA to come up with a plan, boy, then that's really a problem. PCA has not thought out of the box for 50 years. They haven't cited a landfill since 1970. The recycling market's gone down the tubes. There's no market for recycling. PCA has done nothing. So if we're going to rely on PCA, then we really got a problem. And of course, the problem that we have is there's 13 of these in Painesville Township, and the township's going to get hit sideways with this. The county's going to say it's not our problem. State's going to say we don't have money. God knows the governor still might be there yet and do some executive order. And there we are. We're going to be strung out to dry. So that's my concern, and it's going to be with everyone until we deal with this. Wright County put on a moratorium. McLeod County's denying them. So I might be the loudest voice, but there's opposition out there, and it's going to continue to grow until we come to terms with this. And again, it just gets me a little bit worked up when we're asking the questions that are in the narratives. This all looks great. We don't know the answer. And then, of course, we got the property value information from Chicago County, which is 2.5 hours away from here. We better start opening our eyes wide open on this because we're getting blindsided, in my opinion. So that's my editorial. So I guess we're at a point where there's more discussion from members. Anything that Mr. Cash or Ms. Larson O'Neill want to add? And then we'll go to the findings of fact.
Hi, this is Cindy. The only thing that I would mention, I do appreciate your concerns about recycling and the amount of solar gardens that are in Painesville and in Stearns County. The type of equipment that were used, the bulk of it, and again, I can get some details on this, but most of it is glass and metal, and they're normal materials that would be able to be recycled. The things that are less recyclable are the silicon cells, which are inside the panels. But everything that I know about it, which is limited, is that 90% of the system is cleanly recycled. But again, I can get you more information. Thank you.
And I appreciate that. And glass, unfortunately, glass right now, I know a little bit about the recycling market. Glass right now, beer bottles, which is sand. Glass is sand. Unfortunately, it's costing about $50 a ton to get rid of glass right now. So it's almost like hauling it to a landfill. Nobody wants it. Nobody's using it. There is no use for it today. Now, 30 years from now, maybe there will be, but there hasn't been for quite some time. But this is the highest it's cost to still recycle glass. There's just not a market there. So, anything from members? If not,
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone. No, I'm glad you keep bringing up the issues. I have concerns as well with just long-term, the densities of some of the solar gardens we're seeing. And obviously down in your part of the county, it is by far the densest. And so I think it's right to ask the questions. I struggle on all of these. When I look at our comprehensive goals and objectives and how they're stated, and then looking at, in this case, the property owners' right, it's their property to do things as well. So it's the conflict between property owners' right, direction of the long-term comprehensive plan, and the concerns that, to your point, sometimes don't get answered directly or at all with what's the long-term impact. So I'm glad you state that. I struggle with all these and really have to take it by a case by case basis right now, without more clear direction. So that my comments on it.
And just so you know, my concerns that I express is that, again, I'm so frustrated that there isn't long term. I know what we're going to do with our property 50 years from now. Now something could happen, but it's going to be in the family. We're still going to be farming it. There is a plan. And again, Painesville certainly isn't the soil that it is in Spring Hill where our land is, but it was farmed. Like I said, I've driven by the property most of my life, and it was and is farmed. And so, but I don't take it away from the landowner, but a lot of landowners are having issues with the solar company. So if I'm a landowner and I can get the revenue, I'm enticed by that. However, landowner rights, if you own property, you can open up a strip club, but overall, a lot of people don't necessarily like strip clubs in their communities. So that's that fine line. You can do something with your land, but our job is to prevent it from causing a conflict with other areas. And there's only one reason we've got this in Paynesville, is because we've got a substation, a large substation that was built for Geronimo Energy, 5 wind projects, none of which came to fruition because the government money went away. The minute the government money went away, Xcel already had ramped up the substation, Geronimo pulled out, and there we sat. Well, now Xcel, of course, wants to use the substation. Solar companies need that to tap into it, and that's why they're all coming to Paynesville. And of course, you got willing landowners. And the subsidy. There's one, let's face it, nobody's doing this for the good of the world. It's money. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, just admit that. It's government subsidies. It's making money on the projects, and otherwise none of these companies would be here. And again, that's all fine, but everybody else has to have a plan. Every other business has to have a hazardous waste. You know, if you run Lewis Industries in Paynesville, they have to have hazardous waste. They have to have get rid of their liquid waste, and they have to get rid of their garbage. You have to have these plans, and they have to have stormwater systems. They have to have all these things. So everybody's got to follow plans, and most people do have plans. I don't think these plans are adequate. So number 1 is the proposal consistent with existing county ordinances. Specify the applicable sections of the ordinance and discuss why or why not.
This is Brian. Can I add one more thing, kind of back to Mr. Commissioner's question? So
sure.
So one of the intents is that, yes, we were approached to do kind of the entire farm into solar, but we decided that we did not want to do that. My brother lives on the farm site, and we still plan to raise cattle. So that's where we kind of looked at the land to the north of the farm being the lesser productive, and the land to the south is more productive. So our intent is to keep all the land to the south of the farm, which comes to 35 to 40 acres that's tillable. And that should be enough for us to continue to raise our cattle. Thank you.
So number 1, the findings consistent with county ordinances.
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone, the solar garden is consistent with the county ordinances, complies with section 6 and 7 of 6.52 solar energy systems.
2, are there any other standards, rules, requirements that the proposal must meet?
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. The 7 provided in the staff report, and if no one's opposed, the additional restatement of the ordinance language about decommissioning after 1 year of no use.
3, is the proposed use compatible with the present and future land uses in the area, can be separated by distance screening from the adjacent land uses.
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. I do believe it is, according to the ordinance and also the existing land use, it is compatible with present and future land uses.
And regarding the separated by screening, did I read someplace there's going to be a fence surrounding the entire project?
Yes, Mr. Chair, they're proposing a 7-foot fence. They are not proposing any vegetative screening.
4, are there environmental concerns, groundwater, surface water, air quality, wellhead protection areas that should be addressed as part of the proposed request?
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone, there is some wetland concerns and also the DNR with some sensitive plants within a mile, which are impacted in the plan and possible conditions based on the findings from the DNR.
And I would add the environmental concern of the decommissioning of the project when it comes to that point. 5, has information been provided regarding the impact property values in the area as a result of the proposal?
Mr. Chair, there was a property value supplement that was supplied stating that there is not evidence of property values being impacted by solar gardens.
And for the record, that was Chicago County, but it was provided. 6, what potential public health, safety, traffic generation impacts will the proposal have in relation to the area?
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman should be minimal.
7, how does the proposal affect the general health, safety, welfare of the residents?
Mr. Chair, I'd say minimally. It's a pretty rural area.
8, does the proposal conform to the goals and objectives of the county comprehensive plan? Specify which goals and objectives apply.
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here are the clean energy policy goals. Goal number 1, to site solar energy systems in a way that reduces conflict with adjacent land uses. And goal number 2, to continue to require beneficial habitat on the sites. And goal number 5, encourage the development and use of renewable energy systems throughout the county.
And I say it does not conform to the agricultural use policy. Number 1, primary land uses in the agricultural area should be agriculturally oriented with limited agricultural related business, solar, wind, recreational, institutional, open space. The 13th or 14th farm in the area is not limited. 2, it does not conform agricultural use policy, emphasize the importance of animal agriculture to the county economy by treating it as a priority land use in this area compared to residential or other non-agricultural uses. It does not comply with item number 3, agricultural use policies, encourage agricultural practice that allow for coexisting with sensitive natural resources. It does not conform to item number 4 in agricultural use policies, encourage sustainable agricultural practices that protect farmland and water resources for future generation. It does not comply with crop and production diversification policies. Item number 1, encourage the diversification of crops and products to enhance Stearns County regional agricultural presence. And it does not conform to animal agricultural policy number 2, follow pollution controls consistent with state requirements. Number 9, how does the proposal affect existing public services, schools, parks, streets, and utilities?
Mr. Chair, I think relatively minimally in this case.
Number 10, has the applicant provided financial assurance to guarantee the reclamation or cleanup? They will, $185,000. 11, other issues pertinent to this matter. Staff can confirm, but identify what number is this, the 13th or 14th solar farm in Painesville Township, Zion Township. In that area, you can fill in that number.
Okay. Yep.
Let's get it factual, and then the number it is for the Stearns County solar farms, if it's 35 or whatever that number is. And you might want to share those two numbers with the Planning Commission. the
Mr.
board
Chair,
will see it.
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone, I think that is pertinent, and what I'd say it's the number and density in the Paynesville area. It is, from what I have observed in going around the county, by far the highest density within that called 10-mile radius of Paynesville. So I think it is pertinent, particularly in this case.
Thank you, and I would feel just as strongly as if it was in Cold Spring. I said from the very beginning, too much of a good thing is a good thing. And I think Texas would tell you that their demise is that they rely too heavily on wind and solar. And again, we shouldn't have all nuclear. We shouldn't all have natural gas. We shouldn't all have wind. We shouldn't all have solar. It takes a cross-section, and Texas is paying the price right now. We're not looking ahead, in my opinion. So with that, with the findings, motion would be in order.
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. I move that we provide a recommendation for approval of this application to the county commissioners.
Okay, motion's been made to recommend the approval to the county board at their March 2nd meeting. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, this is Ken Mossman. I will second it.
Okay, Ken Mossman seconds it. So there's been a motion made by Jason Wienerman, second by Ken Mossman, to recommend approval to the county board at their March 2nd board meeting. Those in favor say aye when I call your name. Those against say nay. Jason Wienerman.
Aye.
Sean Blackburn.
Nay.
Jason Crone.
I am going to go. I'm going to go nay on this one.
Ken Mossman.
Aye.
Mike Perrell.
Nay.
Rich Blankish.
Aye.
And the chair votes no.
Motion failed, 3-4.
So a counter motion has to be made to recommend denial of the application to the county board.
Yep, that's correct.
Mr. Chair, Sean Blackburn, I will make that motion to recommend denial of this application.
Mr. Chair, Mike Pearl, all second.
Okay, motion was made by Sean Blackburn to recommend denial of the application to the county board at their March 2nd meeting. Mike Pearl second that motion. Any discussion? If not, if you are in favor of the denial, say aye. If you're opposed to the denial, say no. Jason Wienerman.
No.
Sean Blackburn.
Aye.
Jason Crone.
Aye.
Ken Mossman.
No.
Mike Perrell.
Aye.
Rich Blankish.
No.
And the chair votes aye. So the recommendation is made denial to the county board in their March 2nd meeting. Next item of business is the Manufactured Home Standards Ordinance Review. Shelley's going to make that presentation. Shelley, you're on mute.
Somewhere up on the top if you hover.
Deb unmuted me. Thank you. So what we have in front of you tonight is some additional standards that we put together for the whole residential dwelling unit issue that was brought up when we started talking about accessory dwelling units and other uses. So when we talk about residential dwellings, we want to make sure that the housing stock is adequate. And one of the things that we have found is that some of the manufactured homes that are being used or being bought and sold in the county are less than habitable. And so we have been struggling with a couple of issues. So what we're doing is trying to address that, since we are also trying to address the issue of farmhouse labor, additional housing units allowed in different places for employee housing. We figured it was best to address manufactured homes, whether they be in a manufactured home park or that on a single private piece of property. So these are the standards that we put in place, essentially regulating the manufactured homes placed in and around the county. So anytime someone buys or sells a manufactured home, moves it into the county from another county, these are the standards they'd have to apply, meet as a part of the permitting process. I'm not sure if you have any specific questions. More importantly is the Appendix F. Appendix F, I get to the next page here. I'm going to try to make this a little bit better. So Appendix F really is all of life safety issues that we find when dealing with manufactured homes, making sure that they have the proper electrical wiring, the cables are securely fastened, the range and the dryer, clothes dryers are all appropriately managed. So when we have people that are renting houses, we have a rental ordinance. And what we find is that sometimes people are renting things that are less than habitable. So this is an inspection tool that we use. But what we found is that we need to actually put it within the ordinance to make this a standard so that it's can apply across the board and not just in manufactured home parks. We will be amending the manufactured home code ordinance as well in our future. But now we also know, and Commissioner Persky, you can maybe talk a little bit about what we found at some of our manufactured home parks with the housing stock being less than acceptable, as the board has seen. We are trying to make sure we don't have that situation come into play, whether it be for farm labor housing or any other housing across the county. So that's why we're putting these standards in place. Do you have questions for me?
Shelley, Jeff Bertram, the only, you have obviously thought through this. I read this a couple times now, with the parks, where people, there's a combination from how I understand this is where some of the parks will own the home and then somebody rents that home, or the owner has to own the home and the park allows the lease of the lot. So there's like 3-4 different situations where you could own the park mod or the manufactured home, or you don't own it, you rent it, lease the land that it's on, and then this is just parks. And then what about if it's just out on somebody's property? All those different variations, I assume you looked at all that.
That's what we're trying to cover. That's why we're putting in the land use ordinance and not just in a manufactured home park ordinance, because we're trying to cover all of the scenarios that you just talked about. Leasing land, rental situations, rent to own, all of the variations we have found. What we also find is that we struggle with assessment on personal property when it's being transferred from one location to another. So we tried to build in and had conversations with both the assessor's office and the auditor's office to make sure we're asking all the right questions of all the people that are involved in licensing of manufactured homes, so that we are getting a good full picture of how we would be managing and permitting manufactured homes within the county, not just in the parks, but everywhere.
Got it. And so that's what, again, that's pretty involved, and I'm sure you've thought of all those different scenarios. The last item, 7.23.2.6, it says if it's in a manufactured home park, it cannot be modified in any way. Some of the parks that I've seen, they'll have like a walk-in porch or a deck attached to it or a carport, things like that. So that won't be allowed?
Mr. Chair, we did, to that point, if you look on the screen, I do have some additional language for you. Hopefully I can make it a little bit bigger for you. We did have a conversation with the county attorney's office related to 7.23.2.6. And we did modify that language based on what the county attorney told us. So modifications of manufactured homes must be in compliance with Appendix F. Issues of noncompliance shall be corrected and approved by a certified building official prior to occupancy. So if they build something, attach something, it has to meet code to be able to be attached. Manufactured homes actually have additions they can put on that are manufactured additions that would meet the manufacturer's standard. So if they are in compliance with those standards, we didn't want to prohibit it. But what it does then end up prohibiting is someone just nailing something on, Commissioner Persky, maybe you want to speak to Evergreen and some of the things you've seen out there. But we do have some parks that have some additions. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
So we're trying to address all of this and be a little more restrictive so that the housing stock is habitable for whomever is going to choose to live in it. We don't want to discriminate. We certainly want affordable housing opportunities, but we want habitable housing for everyone.
We're exposed in Stearns County from one spectrum to the other. Melrose was the best example. You had the park on the north. That's just great. I mean, there isn't anything out of place. The one in Cold Spring. And then, of course, the one in Melrose that was to the west, the county was involved in that for probably close to 10 years. And the unfortunate part is people are being taken advantage of because these kinds of homes certainly are a potential of a step up from an apartment to a manufactured home to one day, hopefully, a home ownership. And those people are vulnerable, and we want to protect them from being put in, harm's way. And sometimes some of these park owners, just like the solar companies, are in it for the money only, and that's it. Sorry, I couldn't help that.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to just expand on what you just said, and that's very unfortunate. Going back to time when I was on the council and mayor, we looked at mobile home parks as being of ways of affordable housing. But unfortunately, corporate entities have bought up a good number of these mobile home parks. Many of them are from out of state. They could care less to the residents other than them putting in a check and sending it to them every month. And so we've seen prices go from what was usually around $350 to $400 a month that now is around $550 and almost approaching $600 a month just for the rent of the lot. And we have also owners now that are charging for water within the park and also garbage pickup, which used to be included in the lot. So they are taking advantage financially of these folks. But I do also want to commend staff on moving this forward, as well as just the use of mobile homes, and especially when older ones get moved. Some of these mobile homes that were built in the 60s were built with 2x2 construction. Okay, when they get moved, they're going to fall apart or have great issues. And this ones in the 70s weren't much better. But that's being said is you've got plumbing that shifted, you've got gas pipes that have shifted, you've got electrical that has shifted. And when you try to bring these things running again, who knows what's going to happen. And so by all means, we don't like to overstep our boundaries and be too much a big brother. But by the same token, we want to make sure that people are safe in the dwellings that they're inhabiting. And so by all means, I appreciate what's going on with this proposal. And likewise, what Shelley said, we need to also take a look at what's going on at the parks. Going back, I can go back 5 years of shelters that were inadequate. They were cited as far as being adequate storm shelters. To this day, some of them have not been improved to any extent. Likewise, water pressure within the pipes has been very challenging at a distance because they're leaking, or they're 2-inch pipes, and so fire protection is questionable. So we are working on getting some of these standards brought up and holding these owners accountable for living conditions. So I like what staff is doing.
Just a double check on the ordinance. A question for Shelley. So this only applies to dwellings, homes that people are living in, right? So if you were to move a manufactured home onto, let's say, a piece of property by holding fort or something to use as a hunting shack or something like that, these wouldn't apply if it was just a temporary dwelling, if you will. Is that accurate or is that not accurate?
I would say that's not accurate at this time because we don't consider them temporary. They would be needing to meet the requirement because it's supposed to be a dwelling. If you're going to build a hunting shack, this is exactly the issue we're running into, because as soon as someone goes, I'm going to build it, I'm going to put it on for a hunting purpose, then the next person who comes wants to use it for a year-round residence, and it really wasn't established for that purpose. So that's why we're trying to utilize the same standard across the board. So no, this isn't a temporary dwelling situation. So don't go and buy the dollar manufactured home from the mobile home park that's getting rid of it because they're just trying to get you to move it. So don't go buy those.
You're right on. Well, I didn't plan to, but I know some have in the past, and I'm just trying to make sure that we're not preventing unintended consequences. I think the reasons behind this are really good, but for somebody to set something out somewhere that they're not going to be hooking up to gas and they're using temporarily, if there's a way we could put some kind of language in there that would define dwelling, I would feel a little better about it. I think overall this is really good, but I just worry again about unintended consequences.
Within the statute, there are some uses that are allowed for temporary, for construction site situations. There are various options within the statute that allow for use of manufactured homes in a particular way that wouldn't be a dwelling unit. So those would be the ones we would work with, but they would have to deem that necessary and tell us what their purpose and intent was, so that we would be able to look at the statute to say that the statute applies. So this is not one of those situations where we're just going to say everybody can do whatever. We just want to make sure we're meeting the minimum standard. Work with someone if there was a question about that to see if it would comply with one of the exceptions within the statute.
Okay.
I'll write
that. Yeah, I get it. But yeah, so and maybe the other part of it then is that 7.2.3.1, where it says no accessory building or recreational vehicle shall be used at any time as a dwelling unit unless otherwise provided in this ordinance. So make sure that somehow it's provided that type of use would be applicable. Because otherwise, recreational vehicles, that could be, a fish house, it could be a camper.
Right. So what we're saying is if we provide for it somewhere else, we've seen some of those in shoreland areas where they're using we use the word tiny house just because it's something we can relate to, or an RV or a park model. There are other places you can use them as a dwelling unit, or, they are provided for. So that's what we're talking about. We do try to make sure we define those things. But I'm going to write the exception within the statute, and I'll see about where do I put that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Shelley, Jason, here, just a quick question on when is compliance? Is compliance perpetual, or is it just confirmed on when an action takes place?
Well, compliance is we start with when we get the permit, make sure the lot and the building is in compliance. So they will do an inspection for if it is moved in and on a site, and then it gets anchored, and then it's fine. at the sale and or transfer of that property is another compliance portion. Because manufactured homes are considered personal property and they don't fall under the dwelling unit unless they've had other modifications done. So there's a few other pieces that'll come in to play, but compliance would be at that time or unless we get a complaint. For example, when someone rents it for someone else's use, we have had complaints that the heater isn't working or the venting isn't proper or the doors don't close. So when it is a rental property, we go out and address it through the rental ordinance. And then the rental ordinance points to certain levels of compliance. And that's why the other reason we want it, so that we have all of those standards listed for compliance.
So then just to confirm, as you said, a complaint can drive a compliance inspection.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody take a deep breath and give me 2 minutes. I made the unfortunate decision to drink 2 bottles of water in the last hour and a half, and I have to go to the bathroom. So I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Okay, everyone take their break.
I assume we're getting down there, are we not?
Yeah, I think we're just about done. So it's just a matter of if there's a recommendation for this, and then I believe we have minutes.
Okay. Yep, I saw the minutes. All right, perfect.
Shelley, I see it mentions minimum width of 14 feet.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's those old 12-footers still around. So would that preclude then people from moving those 12-footers?
Yeah, Joe, if you could actually move a 12-footer, I would be surprised. It's not
that's
super.
That 2x2 construction I was referring to. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're going to find is that pretty much anything before the code, pre-code homes, are not going to be very movable because they're just literally falling apart. I mean, we have had that in a myriad of cases that we've seen. And then when someone buys it for $1 or they buy it if you move it, it's those are the scenarios when they know that the home is not actually going to meet a compliant standard. So that's why they're trying to get rid of it, because they pay the cost of demolition.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to some people, we look like the bad guy, but in reality, I think we're being the good guy in this. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's the cost of demolition that that's the issue too sometimes. So.
My bladder thanks you. Any other questions? If I was at home, I could just go. You guys are lucky I have to stay here. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, Mike Perrell.
Yes.
I had sort of a problem with that. The one paragraph I read about the solid fuel. Does that mean you're not allowed to use a wood-burning stove?
Not in a manufactured home.
That's where I have a problem. I think we're overreaching. I think if somebody follows all the rules and stuff, a lot of the people that live in a manufactured home are just starting out, and a lot of them have the opportunity to save some money by burning wood or something, and I think it's overly restrictive.
So if you look at number 6 in the appendix here that I've got up on the screen, I just moved it. Solid fuel burning fireplaces or stoves shall be listed for use in manufactured homes and installed in accordance with the listing or standard. So if they have something that they can put in place, they have to make sure that it's the proper size, that it meets all the requirements. Because what we've had is some folks who go, I'm just going to try to do this. And then we have problems with, carbon monoxide, and, we have other problems that come because they're not properly getting these kinds of things installed. Now, if you can meet the standard, then you're good. So it does allow for it based on number 6. Is that the one you were talking about, Mike, or is there a different one?
No, I guess that's the one. You clarified it for me.
Yeah, so you can do it, but you have to do it in compliance with the standards for the manufactured homes that are very specific.
Okay.
Just like the water heaters. You just can't take somebody else's water heater and throw it in. A lot of them have very specific standards in these trailers because of the size and the venting and all the things that have to happen. So they want to make sure that it's safe when someone's doing this kind of work.
Bless you. Is any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question for Shelley. When we talk about the state standards, are they very similar? Are neighboring states should have some of the same types of standards for these manufactured homes?
I have that there are not a lot of standards across the board, and every state is different. Every state is different with its shelter standards. Most states don't even have shelter standards for manufactured home parks, which is a different issue related to our manufactured home park ordinance. But when it comes to code compliance, additions and alterations and these kinds of things, it varies based on the state. You get a lot of different standards in California, Texas, and Florida in comparison to Wisconsin, North Dakota, South Dakota, where they don't have much in the way of a standard. But Wisconsin has some things. So it just depends on where you are. And I think it usually has to do with snow and wind loads when they're talking about where things are going to be placed and how they're going to be anchored and that kind of a scenario. Does that answer it? I mean, there's no.
Yes, no. So I was just that you had talked about how, if you moved one of these manufactured homes into Minnesota, that it might have, that's what I'm talking about, it might have a different production value. Certainly it might not be up to standard.
They have specific, there's a plate that's on the manufactured home that tells you what wind load and snow load that manufactured home has been manufactured to. So hopefully that would be something that would be taken into consideration when it's being brought forward. Because this is what we do, we inspect before it gets moved. So someone would have to meet that standard ahead of it being moved into the county. That's the goal.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Are you looking for a vote, a recommendation to the county board?
Recommendation to board would be wonderful.
Okay. So if there's no other questions and someone feels moved to move recommendation, that would be the time.
So moved. This is Rich.
Okay, Rich moves to recommend approval to the county board of the manufactured home language.
Jason Wienerman, second.
Jason Wienerman seconds. Any discussion? If not, we'll do the vote. I put my sheet away, but let me see how good I am. If you're for the recommendation, say aye, and if you're against it, say no. Jason Wienerman.
Aye.
Jason Crone.
Aye.
Sean Blackburn.
Aye.
Ken Mossman.
Aye.
Rich Blankish.
Aye.
Did I miss anybody?
Mike.
Oh, God. Mike Perrell.
Aye.
Jeff Bertram votes aye. Recommendations made to the county board for their March 2nd meeting. Next item would be the minutes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Shelley, are you planning to put this on consent? I guess I would rather have it on a regular agenda just so that there's more of an awareness, if that's okay.
No, this is public, Commissioner Persky, this is public hearing. So it's a part of the package. Yep.
That'll work then. Okay, good.
The next item would be the minutes. One suggestion on the front page mandatory training. During the presentation of Mr. Hammis, I brought up the issue of not having gotten a response from staff for like 2 weeks when I was trying to complete it. I still haven't had time to do it. I don't know if the other members have or not, but I'm going to give it another go here in the next week or so. But I do want that recognized in the minutes that, you know, when I was having trouble logging in, it took 15 days to get a response back. So, and that staff's going to be more readily available to help us through that for the dummies. Other than that, motion to approve the minutes would be in order.
One more item, Jeff. In regards to that, you questioned that individual. Do commissioners get paid for their personal time to do this mandatory training?
Right, that's in there.
He was supposed.
Steve,
oh, right.
Steve Hammis replied, if he didn't reply to you, or I thought it was in there, but the answer is no per diems for training.
And then when
online training.
He did not reply to my knowledge.
Okay, I'll make sure he did.
That's okay. And then just for the record, then staff was paid when they did it, I assume.
I would assume they did it during work time.
Right. Just for the record, commission members are not, staff was, including Mr. Hammis, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So do we want to approve the minutes?
Question?
Yes,
okay, go ahead.
How can you make anything mandatory on somebody's personal time? Mr. Persky, can you respond to that?
I recognize that as a good question, Mr. Blankish.
I can bring it up with Steve.
Yeah, and my guess is, Rich and Commissioner Persky, you can answer. More than likely, the commissioners weren't asked this question. It was a staff decision, not a commissioner decision. So, again, in all fairness, when we were in the when I was on the council, whatever staff got, we got, and vice versa. You know, we tried to be uniform with it. So that's something Commissioner Persky can address in his own way. Motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Chair, this is Sean. I move that we approve the minutes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it. This is Rich.
I think I heard two people. I'm going to take Rich. Sean moved to approve the minutes. Rich second. Any discussion with the additions, corrections, updates? If not, all those in favor, say aye when I call your name. Let's try it. See if I get it this time. I'm going to start with Mike so I don't forget him. Mike Terrell.
Aye.
Jason Wienerman.
Aye.
Jason Crone.
Aye.
Sean Blackburn.
Aye.
Rich Blankish.
Aye.
Ken.
Wait, I was getting there. Ken Mossman. Ken Mossman. And the chair votes aye. Minutes are approved. With that, I think it's time. Have a good night. Have a good month. See you next
Thank you.
month. Meeting adjourned.
See you Monday. See you guys Monday.
Oh, yeah, Monday. You're right. Thanks for the reminder, Jason. 3:30 on Monday.
All right.
3:30.